Jimmy was way ahead at this stage, but he was about to make a mistake. And it was a mistake under braking out here on the pavement part that he should have been very familiar with. I suspect it was just a loss of concentration as he came down there. He took that escape road. He's a gifted athlete. He kicked it around and lost very little ground.
Well, after the heat, Eddie didn't seem optimistic about his chances in the final, actually. And heat 2 was for the Speedway, dirt track, and sidecar racers. This was lap 1.
Well, Jim, Speedway racers aren't too used to braking. Kenny Carter went wide here, and as he returned to the track, Bruce Pennell, trying to brake to avoid him, skidded and went right over his bike.
Well, Mike Kidd took the lead early in this heat, and he thinks that riding against unfamiliar opponents in the Superbikers calls for extra concentration and caution.
Well, the thing is, all the top 20 riders, I'm very familiar with their riding style. And I know what they're going to do in the turns. I know what their style is, what kind of bike they have, what kind of horsepower. And I can kind of play the race the way I want to play it and pretty much take the lead when it's time to take the lead. Where here, we're running against guys I've never ran against. And I can't really play the game of strategy. I've got to more or less, if I can pass him now, I better do it and hopefully pull away from him. And at high speeds, running side by side with the guys I'm used to, I feel a lot more confident to say come here and run against handlebar to handlebar with somebody I don't know their riding style.
Well, later in that same heat, here was Mike Kidd with a narrow lead over a man whose style is familiar to him, another dirt track rider, Ricky Graham.
Graham took a terrific shot of dirt in his face there as they came off that turn and went over the TT jump. At this point, Graham had up a full head of steam. He was not daunted by that dirt, and he made a brilliant pass there and got by Mike Kidd. So Ricky Graham was leading now as they went on to the part of the track, the motocross part, that neither of them was particularly familiar with. This is not their area of expertise. Kidd was successful in keeping pressure on Graham. In fact, he almost retook him for the lead there. And this set up a mistake by Ricky Graham. He came down, braked too late, went into the hay bale, probably a lapse of concentration. But then he allowed himself to get mad, and that's something, Jim, I would say a champion should never do.
It not only cost him victory, it actually cost him a spot in the final here because he did not finish in the top 5. The winner of the race, Mike Kidd, assured himself of a spot on the first row in the final. So here are the qualifiers so far. The road racers, Eddie Lawson, Dave Aldana, John Betancourt, Rolf Bieland, and Richard Schlachter. The dirt track, Mike Kidd, Wayne Rainey, Ted Booty, Steve Eklund, and Scott Pearson.
Well, there we are, the qualifiers in the first 2 heats. Now we have the heat for the motocross races, and in this event, you'll see the defending champion, Steve Weiss, in action.
At the line and ready to go in the middle of the first row, that's the defending champion, Steve Wise. Others in there include Carlos Serrano, Jeff Jennings, Serge Baku, Jack Johnson. In the second row, we have Graham Noyce, for example, a former world champion, and Håkan Karlqvist, another one. And there's Brad Lackey left at the start. Headed for the first turn, though, it is the defending champion. It's Steve Wise, number 1, taking the lead just that quickly.
Incredibly, Wise actually did not get a very good start right off the line, but when it came time to brake for that first turn, he left his braking later, supremely confident in that difficult terrain, and has taken the lead.
In second place, it's close behind number 8, Jeff Jennings. Third now is Graham Noyce, number 2, then number 6, Carlos Serrano, number 10, Mike Baker. Those are the top 5 right now, and again, just 5 will move into the final, remember.
Here's Wise on the very fastest part of the track. As he told us in his tour of the track, they hit about 115 miles an hour there and have to slow to just 5 miles an hour here at the hairpin. Now down on the pavement, and so far these chicanes have been very difficult for the riders to negotiate. Both Ricky Graham and Eddie Lawson have gone off in earlier heats. Steve Wise, though, Jim, seems a little different from his fellow motocrossers. His dominance on the pavement, a form of the sport that he's really not supposed to be an expert at, is really impressing me, no end.
You know, he's a very impressive young man, Sam. As you know, he was an upstart in many people's minds winning this championship last year. A lot of people wondered, would he be all that competitive again? Well, he's out there against world champions, former world champions, as that wheel comes clear off the ground, beautifully under control, though. And he's racing with the poise of a champion.
Here he is at the fastest part of the track. A beautiful shot from our helicopter. Wise almost out racing it. Now he sits up to get the aerodynamic effect of the wind dragging against his chest there for helping him slow down for that hairpin. Wise's start is all the more remarkable when you realize that Graham Noyce, bike number 2 here, is lying second in the World Championship this year. And Noyce and Wise both have the same bikes underneath them, both Hondas, and yet Wise, so early, just 2 laps into the race, has pulled out this enormous lead.
And Noyce, as you see right now, in a good battle for second place with number 8, Jeff Jennings, who is second at this moment. Håkan Karlqvist has started working his way back up through the pack again after going off the course, by the way. But there is the leader, Steve Wise. Jennings still second, Noyce third, Serrano is still fourth, and Baker is still fifth. No changes in the leaders.
It's interesting to watch the motocross experts negotiating the motocross part of the track, but on a bike not as well suited to this terrain as the bike that they'd be used to. These bikes here do not have the long suspension travel that the motocross bikes have, and as a result, you can see that they're not as easy to keep under control over the bumps.
Okay, we've just seen the 5 leaders there. And from the front again as they come through the chicane. Number 1, there he is, Steve Wise. Behind him, number 8 in the yellow helmet, Jeff Jennings. Number 2, Graham Noyce. Back on the leader again with that right-hander in the early part of the race course. They're second and third. Now in 4th place, number 6, Carlos Serrano, all in yellow. In 5th place, number 10, Mike Baker. Those are the ones who, as of now, would move on into the final. But Håkan Karlqvist is still coming. He's in 7th place right now. We'll keep an eye on him. But look at this battle for second between Jeff Jennings, number 8, Graham Noyce, number 2. Here comes Noyce right now, making a move alongside his man. Can he get him? He has got him. Graham Noyce moving into 2nd place in the race. We're coming up to the final lap in the motocross heat of the Superbikers in Carlsbad, California. Steve Wise will be taking the white flag. There it is, the universal symbol that you, sir, have 1 lap to go. Look, what was he doing there? He pointed down with his left hand towards the right side of his bike.
Well, he was signaling something, Jim, to his pits. There's nothing to adjust on the bike there where he had his hand, so he must have been signaling something must be wrong with the bike of Steve Wise.
Can't tell anything as yet, but Steve Wise, the defending champion, is still the leader here. Just behind him, however, in 2nd place is his teammate, Graham Noyce of England. And here, number 6 is Carlos Serrano. And with him now is Håkan Karlqvist. Håkan Karlqvist has moved into 4th place in the race. Remember, he went off the course in the early going. Looked like he might have had it, but with masterful riding, really, has gotten himself back up there. Now Graham Noyce closing in on Steve Wise for the lead.
And I think Wise is losing horsepower somehow, Jim. Something's wrong with his bike.
See if he can hold on.
I think Noyce is doing something very smart to Wise here, Jim. I think that Wise has been, I don't want to say cocky, he's been extremely self-confident all week so far. And I think Noyce, by shadowing him like this, is working on Steve's mind a little bit. You know, he hasn't had to look in the mirror, so to speak, so far. And he's responding, of course, to it, but I think he knows there's maybe a little chink in the armor.
Boy, just the slightest slip here would make the difference.
Oh, look at Noyce.
Look at him come.
There.
He must have been saving something. He really snookered him, I'll tell you that, coming through that corner. Almost lost it himself, regained it, and has taken the lead. What a move by Graham Noyce of England.
Did you see him take his... Oh, there, Wise! High sides it, Jim. He went right over the side. But, of course, he's getting right back on it if he can, because what we're looking at, when he get in the final, he got it started.
Okay, it started. It looks like he'll still be in the top 5. Oh. But Graham Noyce destroyed the concentration of Steve Wise, I think.
And
just
right at the last minute, look at Noyce pull the front up.
Okay, so he'll be on the 1st row of the final heat, and here is Steve Wise still in 2nd place.
And he had another coming off there, Jim.
And his bike is not going at top speed, not at all, but he's still going to be able to finish 2nd. You can hear the sound of it. And here he is, Steve Wise, about to finish 2nd, getting the checkered flag. I think he lost 2 things, really, on that last lap. Horsepower and concentration, with Graham Noyce, his teammate, dogging him all the way around, and finally taking the lead and the victory in the race. But, of course, he'll be moving on to the final. Another look, Sam.
Noyce is in excellent position here, Jim. Wise is a little bit wide, and Noyce just gets right in underneath him. Now begins an interesting sequence. They're on the motocross part of the track, the part they're both arguably very familiar with, but both of them, first Noyce there, and now we'll see Wise having a lot of trouble on this section. And what I think happened, and why I think Wise went off, is that in the heat of the moment, he felt that his bike would be able to do underneath him what his regular motocross bike would do, which would be to hold a turn like that. Of course, it couldn't, and I think that's why Steve Wise came off.
And off he came, but back on he got like the champion that he is, defending champion in the Superbikers. He'll certainly have plenty to think about before that final race. And so here's the way they finished in the motocross heat. The qualifiers, Graham Noyce of England, Steve Wise.
For that final, Eddie Lawson, Mike Kidd and Graham Noyce will be on the front row of the grid. Incidentally, it's unusual to have a grid start in bike racing, and we'll see if it's a hindrance to be back in the grid, as the defending champion Steve Wise is in that position by virtue of his fall in the heat. Righto, start your engines, adjust the goggles, and away we go in the final of the Superbikers.
They have their hands in the air here to signify that they do not have their hands on the clutch, and they're off.
There is the start, headed for that chicane. Jockeying for position and getting it very quickly is Eddie Lawson on bike number 12. A sensational start for road racer Eddie Lawson, an American. In second place at the moment, Graham Noyce, then we have Wayne Rainey, Mike Kidd, and the defending champion Steve Wise. But there is the leader, Eddie Lawson, first time around, final of the Superbikers.
Lawson rides for the Kawasaki team, Jim, and they did a lot of pre-race testing for this event, as did the Honda team, but at the moment, the Kawasaki power is paying off for Lawson as he accelerates up the long hill and the straightaway that follows.
Okay, well, Steve Wise, the defending champion, is pressing Mike Kidd right now, but up in front it is still Eddie Lawson, Graham Noyce, who was the man on the pole, but it's a pretty good lead for Eddie Lawson right now as they head for the tunnel and up onto the dirt. And as they go under the tunnel, it is Steve Wise passing Mike Kidd to take over fourth position. So Wise, the defending champion, moves up to fourth, but look at Lawson's lead.
Well, Jim, Lawson dominated his heat easily, but of course there he was running against other riders who were expert at what he was good at, which is pavement. Now he's running on the dirt against people that are good at that, and it'll be very interesting to see whether his lead is cut down during this section.
And as they came off the jump, they went into the motocross section, and right now Steve Wise has passed another rider. He has moved past Wayne Rainey and into third place in this race. That kid is really something.
Yeah, and Lawson, by contrast, Jim, has a very almost awkward technique. I should say deliberate. Awkward may not be fair to him. He's very self-conscious about his movements, his shifting of weight here on the dirt section.
Okay, now they're on the pavement again, into the chicane. Eddie Lawson in front, in that green and white uniform. Number 12 in second place.
You can see his lead was cut significantly there.
It certainly was by Graham Noyce, who was in second place, and by Steve Wise, who is third and very much in contention as we look from high overhead at that first turn.
So we have a Kawasaki leading with two Hondas, two teammates running right behind him.
Okay, and on the Kawasaki, still Eddie Lawson. Things not quiet, but strangely the same, at least for the moment. But look now, watch Steve Wise. He's closing in on Noyce for second place.
Yeah, he got some wheel spin there in that section called the parking lot, and he's got a very, very good exit. In fact, he's making a bid and has passed Noyce, so it's Steve Wise now in second. A meteoric start for Wise.
Really remarkable. He was back in fifth place on the start, has quickly, in about a lap and a half, worked his way up to second place, and now will chase the leader. Wise, after Lawson.
They are about to go into the dirt section there, the leap, and then under the bridge. And Wise, there he is. He's making a bid right now on Lawson. Wise on the inside is perfectly positioned. He's taking the lead.
No question about it. This is a real talent out there. Steve Wise, and a young man of tremendous determination. The attempt at the repass by Eddie Lawson, but no indeed.
Well, Wise is a very tough-minded individual, Jim. He's, in fact, mentally almost perfect for this game. He's very intelligent, and yet emotionally he doesn't become over-involved. He was, for example, able to shake off the disappointment of losing that first heat very easily, and he's right back on top now.
He certainly is, and at the moment, Graham Noyce is beginning to close in on Eddie Lawson for second place, if you notice there. Those are the top three, and there is Noyce making his move and getting second place from Eddie Lawson. So we have motocross men now running 1 and 2, the road racer third. He was passed, remember, on the unfamiliar surface of dirt. Now he's back on the asphalt. Let's see if he can catch Noyce. The leader is still Steve Wise, a remarkable young man from Texas. When we talked to him earlier, this confident young man confessed that he did have one reservation about participating on this course.
I think motocrossers have a tendency to get in trouble more than any other riders as far as being out here, because we're not used to the speeds. That's all there is to it. We're not used to the high speeds. We're just not used to that.
used to it or not, he handles all the surfaces out here in a better compromise, let us say, than anybody else does. The 24-year-old Steve Wise of Far, Texas. Really something, isn't he, Sam?
He certainly is, Jim. And here's a beautiful helicopter shot of Graham Noyes pulling away from Eddie Lawson at this stage. You know, Steve Wise, I think when we had that interview with him, and he said that the motocrossers were used to lower speeds and that it could be dangerous for them to run here at higher speeds. The motocrosser, at the very most, goes 65 miles an hour, but he averages about 20 to 25, whereas on pavement here, they've been hitting 115. Sometimes in that increase of speed, you get a threshold where a driver, although very adept at the lower speed, literally becomes afraid and just does not handle himself so well at the higher speed. Obviously, that is not a problem of Steve Wise, who can handle himself, it would seem, at any speed at all.
And there he is, back on the dirt at that point, going over the jump, and here still the battle for second place. Graham Noyes over the jump, behind him, Eddie Lawson. Lawson's going to have to figure out something kind of fancy to do if he's going to regain second place. And if anybody's going to beat this young man, well, it's going to be a big surprise from this point on. Steve Wise seemingly, let us say, on his way to a second consecutive victory in the Superbikers. Less than 2 laps to go in the Superbikers. The battle for second place still goes on between Graham Noyes in the red as they go under the tunnel and onto the dirt, and in the green and white uniform, Eddie Lawson. As you can see, however, Noyes is beginning to stretch it out a little bit over Lawson as they move onto the dirt again. And well in front of both of them is the leader in the competition, Steve Wise. Here he is, defending his championship, and if he can just keep it up, stay careful, don't make any little thoughtless mistakes on this last lap and a half, he'll have won it again.
Well, of course, it was in the last lap that he came off and lost first place in the heat, so nothing is ever sure until a checkered flag. And so we've been talking so much about the dominance of Steve Wise, Jim, but really, in a way now, we should talk about the dominance of the Honda company in this race, because they are running 1-2 ahead of the Kawasaki at this point, and I think they have put some very, very good machines under their riders.
No question of that. Here they are back on the pavement again, and here is the white flag. Everywhere in racing, that means the same thing. 1 lap to go, 1 lap, and Steve Wise will retain his championship. You're absolutely right, of course, when you said that in the heats, he lost the heat on the last lap, and he lost it to the man who's in second place right now, Graham Noyes. Let's watch his technique on this final lap, Sam.
Well, he stays out very late and makes a terrifically late apex at that turn, Jim. And what that means is he has good acceleration out of the turn. It's a disciplined maneuver to make an apex like that. And Steve, more than anybody else, has used that line and used it effectively all day long.
On the pavement now, fastest part of the course. Speeds up to 115 miles an hour, now slowing down, going into the hairpin. Tremendous deceleration right here, and then accelerate as you head for the tunnel for the last time.
Yes, 1 minute that front wheel is just pinned on the road. The next minute, it's lifted up in acceleration.
Graham Noyes still comfortably in second place ahead of Eddie Lawson. Of course, one slip of the wheel and second place would disappear for him. They're that close together, and the speeds are that high. Onto the dirt for the last time.
Look at the angle of the light, Jim. Extremely long shadows and the strange lighting across the deep ruts. The riders who've had to battle with different surface conditions all day long are now having to struggle with different lighting effects on those surface conditions. Not an easy job.
The leader on his regular home away from home here, the motocross section, then just a little bit on the pavement again, and he will be home free. They'll be getting out the checkered flag for Steve Wise. Now he's passing a slower racer here, about to. That's Richard Schlachter from Connecticut. See you around, Richard. And back onto the pavement. Here it comes. There's the flagman preparing to welcome home the winner, Steve Wise, for the second year in a row. Here he is, a fist in the air, really enjoying himself, crossing the finish line. Schlachter crossing the finish line second, of course, is a lap behind. The actual second-place finisher, Graham Noyes. There he is, and in third place, Eddie Lawson. Once again, the winner from Far, Texas, is Steve Wise.
Well, it certainly is easy to be wise after the event.